doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
May I remind you that we are having June 6th tomorrow. This is D-Day anniversary, when the Americans once ended a war in Europe. And I think this is in your hand in specific, in ours.
That was not a pleasant day for you?
No, that was not a pleasant.
This was not a great
in the
day.
long run, Mr. President, this was the liberation of my country from Nazi dictatorship.
That's true. That's true.
And we know what we owe you. But this is the reason why I'm saying that America is again in a very strong position to do something on this war and ending this war. So let's talk about what we can do jointly, and we are ready to do what we can. And you know that we gave support to Ukraine.
Call the president on his cell phone at 6:45. He picks up.
Yeah, he picked up. Look, there's been reporting out there that the White House is working to put together a call between Elon Musk and Donald Trump to broker some kind of peace. I asked Donald Trump about that. He said he's not particularly interested in talking to Elon Musk. He said Elon wants to talk to him. He's not ready to talk to Musk, who he called a man who has lost his mind.
They have a lot of leverage over each other.
Oh, there's no question about that. Look, Elon Musk, obviously the richest man on the planet, the biggest Republican donor in the history of Republican donors.
Просто пиздец. А что это за...
Welcome to the SCIF. It's Friday morning, sports fans. Thanks for joining us. We got a lot to rock through today. First, we're going to have Big Honey 6, Michael Yon, on in the first hour to discuss the invasion of the United States. And not just that, but what the consequences are with the murders of people across the country and who's behind all this. We don't hold any punches here, and we allow opinions on all sides. So stay tuned for that. Second hour, we have General Paul Vallely, and we're going to talk about the global wars and the push for war and what the hell is going on in Ukraine. But first, what the hell is going on in D.C. between Musk and Trump? The big fight continues. It looks like Trump is playing hard to get and doesn't want to talk to Musk this morning. We'll see how this plays out. A little more art of the deal to go, I think, before we get anywhere on this thing. But this is fascinating, and we're going to talk about what maybe behind all this. And I want to say welcome to the crew. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate all the interaction in the chat. You're cleared hot in the chat. Thanks for the crew. Always good stuff. We'll keep a lookout for some good comments today. And also want to give a shout out to our partner, What Finger News. They post a lot of our content. If you're looking for a great aggregation site, this could be it. Put them in your scan along with CDM.press. They don't post everything we do, but they post a lot of it, and we really appreciate that. So thank you to whatfinger.com. So today is June 6th. I'm your host, L Todd Wood. Here's your mission brief. What is going on with Musk and Trump? We're going to dig into the details and kind of try to find some insight into what may be behind all this. Russia strikes Ukraine overnight in a massive missile barrage. This is getting scary, folks. And the peace process looks to be derailed, which was probably the goal of the deep state. But we're going to continue on this story as we have. We'll have Pete Blaber back on Tuesday and do Ukraine sit rep. But we've also got General Vallely today to get his perspective on what's going on. Really smart elderly statesman, and we're looking forward to that. Mike Lindell trial continues. We're putting up daily updates on ColoradoFreePress.com, our paper in Colorado. We ran to the guns. We ran to the sound of the guns in Colorado. People were saying, where should we open papers? And we said, where we need them the most, where there's no free media, where the states are really in trouble. So places like Georgia, places like Colorado, where there's no free media and people are just being propagandized. So we'll have an update on the Lindell trial from the Colorado Free Press, and we hope maybe have Ash Epp or one of them, the team, on next week to discuss. And the Colorado show will be back Wednesday afternoon. They're covering the trial all week, so there's no show this week. Broward County continued disclosure, corruption in Broward County in the sheriff's office. That is the second part in the series, dropped this morning on MiamiIndependent.com. And why is General Donahue in charge? Armedforces.press, our esteemed columnist John Hughes is all over that. And what are the implications of that for global war? And, why do we have these generals who did not do the right thing when it mattered in charge of our forces in Europe, where we may be in another global conflict? We saw the videos early on the strike in Kiev, across Kiev, in Lutsk and other cities in Ukraine, a massive 400+ projectiles. We don't know if that's all Russia's going to do as a response to their aircraft being hit on the tarmac in Russia across multiple airfields, but that's definitely a huge strike. And MERS is in the Oval Office with Donald J. Trump and talking about what's going on in Germany. Trump said, he gave some insight there. He said, we had a deal with Ukraine and we need the rare earths. And I think that's really significant. And we'll talk about that when we dig into this later on in the show. But stay with us. It's going to be a big show. We've got Michael Yon coming on right after this, and we'll talk about the invasion of the U.S. and everything that you may not know as to who's behind it. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Contagion kit is something new. Can you tell us about that and what's in it and what it's for?
Well, the contagion kit is specifically geared towards a respiratory virus. It includes some of the medications that we've been talking about that are well known to be able to treat respiratory viruses. And importantly, it includes a nebulizer, a way to aerosolize a liquid medication so that you can breathe it into the lungs. Again, these kits are not meant to replace your doctor or a relationship with a doctor. They are not meant for you to fly solo. We have telemedicine visits available if you have any questions about the symptoms you're having. There's a booklet in there as well that supports and kind of coaches you through what symptoms you may be having from something. So these aren't meant to be a panacea to replace everything in medicine. It's a way, however, for people to feel and to be prepared, to be at the ready, to be more resilient, and to be more immune from the sorts of intrusions that we saw during COVID, where your insurance company or your own doctor or the pharmacist or the pharmacy was refusing to let people get a hold of medication.
We launched ALP. We've had 4 flavors, but we are proud to announce ALP has a brand new flavor, one of several we'll be rolling out over the next year or so, and it is sweet nectar. I have personally tested this product 2 at a time, and it's excellent. Sweet nectar, the new flavor out from ALP, really, really good. Go to alppouch.com. You can order it in bulk by the pallet if you want. I have strongly recommended sweet nectar. And stay tuned for morning flavors.
When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah, we'll give him a hearty welcome then, hurrah, hurrah. All the men will cheer, the boys will shout, the ladies they will all turn out and we'll all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home. And we'll all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home.
Welcome back to the SCIF, sports fans. You know, one of my favorite movies is The Great Santini. If you haven't ever seen it, fantastic movie. It was actually filmed near where I grew up, down in the low country, as they say, in the Savannah area. Let's check Tesla. The price of the stock is up a little bit, but it got a massive hit yesterday. I think Elon lost about $35 billion, bouncing a little bit today. This is really important. Let's dig into what's going on with this whole situation. I want to bring up another post we put up yesterday. Who's keeping America's interests in heart? And we're trying to like look at the big picture here as to what's happening. This is not just a fight between 2 billionaires, a cat fight. This is something much bigger. There's a lot going on here. There's gangs inside the U.S. government who are fighting for power, different factions, if you will, kind of gangs in New York style. The surveillance state is being built under the Trump administration. We've seen all the reports of Palantir getting access to all of the, U.S. government data that they're going to feed into their database and build profiles on every American, which is kind of shocking. Now, this is being done by the PayPal mafia and Peter Thiel, which Elon was part of in the beginning. So I think there's a bigger play here. And maybe this whole Doge stuff was part of that, to give access to Elon to a lot of that data. And maybe he didn't get what he wanted, and maybe he's worried about Palantir and his old bros at the PayPal mafia getting ahead of him in the AI race and then the data race, which is really what all this is about, building the surveillance state and who's going to be powerful over everyone. There's also, obviously, yesterday, Elon let the cat out of the bag. He has intentions for bigger power in the future, maybe a campaign for office. Don't rule that out. He wants power. The debt is hanging over everybody. Everybody knows Washington's spending into oblivion. If you look at this article, we put out a little bit about what Besant is saying, and you can go look at that and what his essential justification of the bill is. There's a lot there to dig through in this article. But our point is, who's keeping America's interests at heart? Threatening to shut down the rockets by Musk is obviously not doing that for America. Threatening to get closer to China or Europe or the Democrats is obviously not doing that for us, the American people. So who's taking care of the American people? We want to keep that front and center throughout all of this. As this surveillance state gets built and who is in control of it. And there's also, if you think about it, we had Ivan Raiklin on recently, and he said all of this press is coming out to like obfuscate what is happening with the Susie Wiles disclosures, with the mRNA disclosures, that they're continuing these bioweapon death shots. So I want you to keep a bigger global picture about what's happening and think bigger than just a fight between these two guys, because I don't think that's all it is. So we sat down with Michael Yon yesterday. I emailed, I saw a lot he was putting out. He has some different views on things. We try to provide different views to everybody, and a space to come on the show and talk. And he's definitely one of those guys. So I hope you enjoy this interview with Michael Yon.
Here.
Huh.
You ready?
You're in Texas, right?
Yep.
All right, here we go. We are honored to have back with us Michael Yon. He is putting out a lot of information on all these terror suspects that are in the U.S. Doing really bad things. Michael, thanks for digging out some time for me, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks. I'm back in Texas, still in Texas. I love it here. And, I know I'm back in Texas.
I remember those well.
There you go. Investigation in the morning showed it was fire ants. Fire ants, you know how they can go to electricity and get into pump. Well, that's
man. Takes me back to my Georgia days. I remember those well.
Yeah. I grew up in Florida too. It's like Florida, Georgia, Texas, Panama. Fire, ants. The Japanese respect ants a lot for their ability to work as teams and work together, for better or for worse. They are really team players and super smart as a group. They know.
Yeah, how do they communicate? I've always wondered how they communicate. There has to be some kind of way they do it.
They use pheromones. I know that much because I learned that much when I was a kid. I read a book on ants, and I learned that they when they're doing their stigmergic learning, how to make the shortest path, which is very complex. It's very very complex to make the shortest path between two places when you're at that scale or any scale. And so what they do is they leave pheromone trails, and as that pheromone trail increases, then they are like, okay, more ants have taken this path, and they just keep working it out and working it out.
Wow.
Interestingly, so one thing I learned reading that book as a child, I say a child, I was like a teenager, was a child when you're a teenager, but you can lick your finger like this and put a circle around the ants. Let's say if they're on a wall, it's hard to do in the sand, but you can but you can do it. You can draw a circle around them in the sand, but you'll mess up their pheromone trail. And when you do that, make a circle around the ants they're going. The ones who are inside the circle will start walking around. They get lost, and they keep checking. And then the ones who are outside the circle, they're like, I was following the trail and it just stopped. But they have a program for that one too. They have an algorithm for everything.
Wow.
and then they just start bumping on that circle that you made until one of them works it through. It won't take them long. It's not like it's going to take them 2 hours. They run into a problem that they run into constantly. Okay, our trail interrupted. Go to next program. Trail going again. Try it when you see ants on the wall. So they do.
I'm going to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So they are very sophisticated. They're like little F-35s in a tiny body.
So is that how the terrorists get into the U.S.? They just follow the pheromones of the guy that came in front of him?
Actually, in a sense, if you read my Substack, on Substack, I published something on stigmergic learning about 2 months ago or so, and it's very popular. It was a very popular dispatch, actually, and a lot of military people and others are like, that's exactly. We don't exactly use pheromone trails, but when for instance, trail making. I was driving down somewhere in Texas recently, and you see there's a malfunction junction where all the intersections go together. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, 8 roads collide type stuff. It's a spaghetti, right?
Yeah.
And I was with somebody in the car, and I said, this is probably right in the area where Indians used to cross paths as well. Probably. Yeah. And it's probably in the area where migratory animals like bison or something used to cross, probably, right? But when you see like down in the in areas around the world like I spend a lot of time in third world countries, like, I don't know, a year in Nepal, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see the people follow the same paths as like the yaks follow, right? You'll and after some period of time, if the population grows and it's a relatively sophisticated population, you'll end up with a road, and then later you'll end up with, these days you'll end up with maybe a train or something, depending on how important that route is. But yeah, we learn, when we were in the Afghan war, I was in Iraq and Afghanistan, but in the Afghan war, I remember there was some Marine major, this was kind of in the news, but he had developed some program called an honesty trace. I think he was a Marine major. Hopefully the Marines or others who are out here watching this can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is roughly accurate. He developed this program for our Blue Forces tracker. Blue Forces tracker is the tracker that would track where we are, like blue forces. Friendly forces are blue forces, right? So we need to know where blue forces are so we don't shoot at each other and that sort of thing, right? And so the Blue Forces tracker also keeps track of all the places you've been, right? It leaves, and so back at headquarters, you can see all of our, we tend to go these routes. And it's interesting because over a period of days, weeks, months, years, even different units, we will tend to make the same, like, let's say one Marine unit leaves and another Marine unit comes in. And this new Marine unit says, hey, we're going to go places where the enemy would not think to put an ambush or an IED, right? Because, we're going to use good Marine tactics and we're going to do this. However, the previous unit also used good tactics and they went to the same school as you did. And so you're probably going to tend to select what they selected. Well, the Taliban notices this. The Taliban are very smart. I read one book from the 1800s where the Pashtun people were fighting the British, and the British commander is like, how good they are at noticing where some unit was that passed through 2 years ago. So they wait in that place. And so this is part of the Pashtun firmware, Pashtun, most of the Taliban are Pashtun people, but and modern Taliban. But the point is, it's part of their firmware to watch where the guy went 2 years ago. You're going to sit under this shade tree when it's hot, because it's hot here. So we put a bomb under the shade tree. That actually happened with one unit that I was just landed in a helicopter one day, and everybody's, moving around doing stuff quickly. And it so happened that an Afghan commander sat in the shade of the tree, blew him up. He was dead. Right.
Wow.
That was my introduction to that new unit. I wasn't there when it happened because I just landed and they were busy with that stuff.
That brings me to something. Atlanta, Georgia was always in a weird spot. And I was told in the past that it was an old, crossroads, and that's why the city developed. And that may be exactly what you're talking about. I mean,
look at Memphis.
Over time.
Look at Memphis, right? Look at Memphis. Like we were looking at data center stuff a few months ago, and a friend of mine actually went to Memphis. He's a very capable researcher, but we were down in Panama together researching that potential conflict down there. And then finally he pushed off to Memphis. And the question was, why is Memphis a place where they would put data centers? And I said, because I study these things, Memphis will be a center. Why does FedEx have their headquarters there, right?
Yeah,
it's because that is the sensible mathematical place, the center of the work where you would want your beehive to be. The bees want their hive to be right in the middle of the, they want the hive to be in the yeah. And the ants want to be, their ant beds are, a couple of things. One is it has to be, good land. It's not a place that's going to flood them out usually, and that sort of thing. But also that they want it to be near the food, right? And you want it to be near the center of the food, right? And so the center of the bulk of the food, right? And so Memphis happens to be that. And if you look at the population center of the United States, it's roughly at around Memphis area right now, actually, right?
Yeah.
So these paths that you find, and they're all out there, they were created no telling when ago by animals and Indians and other things. And then we came on wagon trains and we're on the same paths. And finally, these major interstates that you go down, a lot of those will be mostly like old Indian areas that they used to go as well. Not straight. It's not like they had their own I-75 or I-10 or something like that, but Highway 1, but it will be something like that. It'll be very close.
That's That's really interesting, man. So tell me about these people that are coming into the U.S. that have been you've been tracking them, right?
Yeah, and they've been doing the same thing, building their little stigmergic, learning how to invade the United States and Europe and Japan and Australia and more, right? And so look at this guy that just did the whatever attack up in Boulder with the flames.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure
Yeah.
what happened.
What it
Anyway,
was.
I didn't see the video of him. Maybe they elided the video from what happened with this so-called flamethrower. Was it Molotovs or was it
I
flamethrower?
said I saw pictures with him with 2 Molotovs, and then people got burned allegedly.
They were squirt bottles. So maybe that's
really?
because but I don't know what exactly he did because I didn't see video of that, which is probably out there. But I saw him holding the flame bottles, right? And I don't know, maybe he did. I don't know, but apparently he burned a bunch of people, right? And interestingly, one of the ladies allegedly burned. I say allegedly because everything is a stage these days. We don't know truth.
It's all a lie. It's all fake.
It's hard to sort it out. And with intention of the people who do these things. But she is, first of all, you see her in the headlines. She's a Holocaust victim, a Holocaust survivor victim, right? Actually, that turns out to be fake. She's not a Holocaust survivor, but that's the news. And that's the way she's made herself out to be. She's 88 years old. Her family was wealthy, as it turns out. She was never in the Holocaust. They missed. She was born in Hungary. She was, she ended up in the United States in 1945, according to what I've read. And she was actually in Italy and other places. Anyway, she was never in any camps or any of that stuff. It's the normal Holocaust fraud, right? There's so many frauds. I call it pityopathy, right? Where people, because there are certain people that will always fall for the pity, and those are the prey of the pity paths, right? The people the pity pathology, right? And so professional victims are always predators. I've never seen an exception, and that goes from a personal level to a cult level and to a cultural level and to a national level. Some countries, some peoples are just natural victims. Some cultures that are not natural victims, like they, reject that, is like Japanese and English. Japanese and English, they reject. I mean, there'll be people within their cultures that are professional victims, but as a add up, do all the math. Japanese are not professional victims. English are not professional victims. Although there are, the British soldiers used to. When I was in Iraq and Afghanistan with British, and I did a lot of combat with them. So a lot of their soldiers were killed when I was there, and I mean, the units that I was with. And occasionally there will be a family member who really just glumps onto the death of her usually son, right? Just glumps onto it and then uses that as like a cause, and just like to the point where it becomes kind of gross, right? And it becomes to the point where it's like somebody that wears 8 pounds of makeup and their neck is sagging from the makeup, right? It's just, so the British call that actually a grief whore. They actually call that.
Really?
Oh yeah, they call it a grief whore. But I mean, that's a crude and vulgar term for pityopathy, right? And
that's interesting because I remember the Zulu movie. I forget the name of the movie where there's a million Zulus coming to a few hundred British in the bush, and they're about to get wiped out. And the young kid is running to the quartermaster, and he's like, "I need more ammo." And he's like, "Only one every 5 minutes." And the dude's like, "There's a million guys coming to me." And he's like, "Come back in 5 minutes." I mean, the British, you're right, were not like that. They were used to fighting with discipline.
Yeah, but they actually still do, but their military is falling apart now. Obviously, I got these 2 books here. Actually, you can get these in a 3 series of 3 too. These 2 were printed in 1852, right? And this is an outstanding book. You can get them new actually from Amazon but I like the old ones because they have more drawings and stuff, so I find them more useful. But this is the Memoirs of Extraordinary Popular Delusions, right? And the Madness of Crowds. An incredible books, man. Let me say it again, because if people want to read an incredible couple of books, or depending on which, you can get it in one big book. It's Memoirs of extraordinary popular delusions, right? And in here, he actually talks about during Tulip Mania, what he's talking about is all these different huge delusions that people have had over the years. Not always fraud, but just manias and sometimes fraud. Like, for instance, massive witch hunts, killing huge amounts of people in witch hunts. That was a mania, right? And these things are constantly swept. These things aren't something that happen occasionally. They are always happening. Always, including
happened a few years ago and for COVID. That was a total mania.
And right now there's all these smaller ones that are always going on that are huge if you're a part of it. Like, for instance, Bitcoin. Now, people will get very emotional when you mention Bitcoin, some people. And if you're feeling emotional, what will he say next? And I say something against Bitcoin. If you get angry, like, you don't understand the technology, you're in a cult, dude. You're in a cult straight up. Right out of Tulip Mania. In fact, if you read, and trust me, every day this morning when I woke up, I had a message from a very wealthy guy, and he is totally into Bitcoin. He's a super smart guy. Every day he's talking about the virtues of Bitcoin. And he's like, so-and-so just adopted Bitcoin and yada, yada, yada. But this is the thing, is it doesn't matter about your wealth or education. Tulip Mania, in the 1600s, and that swept across Holland at the time, and keep in mind, the Dutch are known for their prudence, right? The Dutch are also never professional victims. They're known for their prudence. If you think of Dutch, you're like, oh yeah, they're very good in business. Well, guess what? Tulip Mania swept across and rearranged the wealth structure of Netherlands. You know what I mean? It didn't break Netherlands. Netherlands kept going, but internally, a lot of people that used to be rich are now homeless, and some people are living in their homes. And but it went across the whole spectrum. But the Tulip Mania, in the section where he talks about Tulip Mania, he also talks about how the tulips that people so valued were actually the original the tulips that grow wild. They're very hardy. They're like poppy, you know what I mean? They're super hardy. They don't need much water. They can take a beating and keep on growing, keep on blooming. And but the ones that they bred, the ones that were so valuable, were very delicate, very, like, you had to treat them like babies, right? Because they were hard to keep alive, actually, which is interesting because he talks about that in one of the volumes, volume 2, I think. Yeah, volume 2. And he talks about that. And he says, what is this strange trait with people like the mother who focuses only on her sickly child and just complete attention? And of course, that child then becomes more sick because he gets more attention. But the rest of the healthy children get no attention. That's like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. If people who've watched the movie and Ferris Bueller's in his bed and his mother and his father are doting over him, and his sister, who's very strong, she's just like getting disgusted with Ferris. She knows it's fake, and that's the whole pitiopathy, right? And of course, Ferris Bueller's playing it up. Yeah, I'm sick, Mom. Oh, it's like it's a tale as old as time. But in any case,
I think it's kind of wearing off right now, though. I mean, I think people see through it in a lot of ways, and because there's a lot of different pity parties going on for the last few years. Let
me finish that. That's what I want to say, right?
Yeah.
That woman, that 88-year-old woman who's supposedly a victim of the Holocaust, which she was not. That's a lie. Pitiopathy. There she goes. And then she was at this protest supporting Israel to do their genocide in Gaza, right? Other people are losing their minds now, flicking the channel. Get it. I totally get it. It's a cult. And the next one is she's wearing a highest pin right here. She's wearing a highest. Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, their whole business model is pity. Pity is their product, literally is their product. And so they are some of the major people that are invading the United States is highest. I'm with them all. I used to eat breakfast with them all the time. They down in Darien in Panama. They eat breakfast at Tenoce Hotel right off Highway 1, right by San Vicente Camp. Their office is like 80 yards probably from where we used to eat breakfast, about 40 yards or 30 yards from the front of San Vicente Camp, which is China Camp. So in other words, a guy by the name who did the flame thing over in Colorado with his squirt bottles or whatever they were. There's a guy, he's an Egyptian. There's a guy by that name, an Egyptian, who came through that camp, right? He's on the database. I was able to check. And I have the database. It's pretty easy to check.
Yeah, I know you do.
So he actually, I don't know if it was him because the age is different. A guy by his name came through. And in any case, one way or the other, the fact that he's even in America with his whole family, it's highest, it's United Nations, it's all those pity party people. United Nations is
Catholic charities too.
Catholic charities, we should be blowing their doors off the hinges. United States government should be seizing all of their assets and whatnot for the things that they've done to this country. That I was on a call. I told you this recently, about in mid-May. So what's that? 3 weeks ago now. I was on a call with Marjorie Taylor Greene's people on this House Oversight Committee stuff. To my knowledge, Marjorie Taylor Greene was not on the call. If she was silent and listening. But in any case, one of the people on the call is like, we shouldn't go after the NGOs that are faith-based, like Catholic Charities and Highest and yada, yada. And because he doesn't want to upset people. I mean, this is the weak mind of some of and this was a male voice. I wouldn't say it was a man voice because a man would never say idiotic stuff like that. Like we shouldn't hurt the feelings of our enemies who are destroying us. That's like saying, I don't want to hurt the feelings of the guys that just blew down the hinges on my door and are going for the wife and kids.
I always wonder if that is just incompetence or ignorance or complicity or all of the above or what. I mean,
one way or the other is treason. As we boil it down to the all the water's gone and see what's left behind, treason, straight up treason. Yeah. Now it could be Now, how did we get to that treason? I don't know. It could be weakness. He could just be a coward. Because cowardice is the germ of treason, or is a germ of treason.
Go along and get along, just keep my job and keep my paycheck and say what I need to say.
And there are some levels, I get it, where people are out there and go along to get along is important in many circumstances, but there are certain things where there is a line where you don't go along to get along beyond this line, right? And that line, for instance, would be drug heads like Joe Rogan pushing drugs to millions, tens of millions of young people. That's a line I will not cross, right? So many times I've been offered, I can help you get on Joe Rogan. He's like, you think I'm going on Dopehead Joe Rogan's show? By the way, I've told millions of people in interviews and written it so many times, I'll never go on Joe Rogan's show while he's a dopehead pushing dope, him and Rocket Tweezer guy smoking dope together, Elon Musk, in front of tens of millions of young people. That is enemy action. That's not stupidity. Do we think somebody that's smart enough to put brain chips in us and fly to Mars and all these sorts of things is then stupid enough to smoke dope in front of millions of young people, right? Together on the Joe Rogan show, right? Now, I was told last night that Joe Rogan, I don't know if this is true. I was just told this last night, that Joe Rogan may have renounced the dope thing. Maybe he renounced it after. I don't know. I don't know if he's doing that publicly or not. I hope he is. Because
you're talking about the product he developed, the gummies or whatever, right?
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know, but I don't know. I just was told that last night. I haven't had a chance to check into it yet. But the bottom line is, he's got a giant tree. I got a little hatchet, and I will chop that tree down. I've chopped down a lot of trees in my time. I chopped down McChrystal. He didn't get fired from the Rolling Stone article. He got fired from the things that I did and set the table for that, right? Jerome Menard, gone. Bankrupted a magazine. It's called Shock Magazine from HFM, gone, right? You can do it. You just got to realize you're never going to chop down a great big poison tree with one chop. Sometimes you can, but I can't with my axe on something like that. But I can chop away right now. Right now, as we talk, another little piece of wood flew out, because some people are going to get what I'm saying. When the Japanese have a word for people who, Masako Ganaha told me this. We were talking about it last night, and she talked about a Japanese word for people who justify what they know is wrong. And that word in Japanese, it means like rotten to the core, right? Because there's people that know that what they're doing is wrong, and then they go, yeah, it's wrong. I need to fix that. I shouldn't be doing that, right? Because we've all been through that in our life, of course. Everybody. There's no exception to like this old man said many years ago, son, you know when you're doing dirt, right? And so, but there's people that have a moral core that do dirt, and then they go, that's wrong. I feel bad about that. I can't do that, because they have a moral core, right? But there's people without the moral core. They spend their whole life justifying why it's freedom to smoke dope, why it's freedom. Dope is not as bad as alcohol. That too, right? That too, right? And the prescription drugs is worse. That too, right? It's not the dope per se, or whatever dope is. By the way, the young dope heads today, a lot of them, they think that they're the latest experts on this, as if all this stuff was invented after their birth. You know what I mean? They don't realize, like, when I use the term dope, they'll be like, you don't even know what dope is. I mean, boomer or whatever. It's like, you just fell out. You just came out of the ground as a sprout right now. You know what I'm saying? If you look in these old books, you look at these old
read about the opium wars, and then
you read this. All this stuff was well developed and highly mature before your great grandparents were born. You're just a little sprout where cows are eating you, right? Cows are you're gone, because another cow ate you, right? And so, at the end of the day, the term dope, for instance, has been used for, I don't know. I think it first came from Dutch people, when they would dope that they would use to, like putty in boats and that sort of thing. Or, dope has many meanings, right? Like opium is like dope, right? It's like, dope that you use as putty, right? And it's kind of plasticky. And, but I don't really know. I've tried to find the etymology of the word, and it kind of always fades to gray. But the bottom line is that many terms have been used to describe, many different types of dope, but dope is also a catch-all. Like dope can mean cocaine. In the past, people have called cocaine dope, right? Anything that's an intoxicant, they'll say, get off those dope pills, right? Like dope pills can be whatever pills that the doctor prescribed that's making you crazy. That's an old term, dope pills. The doctor's prescribing dope pills. They're making you loopy, right? So this idea that suddenly you were born now and you watch a bunch of YouTube crap and you're suddenly an expert on this stuff. You ain't going to be an expert on this stuff without 10 years of study. I'll guarantee you. This is a big, deep subject, and the new generations and us, we were born after this was a highly mature thing. And when you're doing psychological operations and you want people greased up and fueled up for psychological operations, the number one weapon is intoxicants, whether that be alcohol, dopes of any flavor, whether that be prescription dope or
not. All you got to do is drive down any town in the USA and count the smoke shops, right?
Yeah, every time I see a bum on the street in America, which is very often, shitting on themselves, pissing on themselves, let's just call it what it is, probably infested with, typhus-bearing lice, I think of Joe Rogan. I literally think of Joe Rogan. Every time I see one of these guys stooped over and he can't move because he's in one of those dope stupors from whatever that guy's on, and of course the dope heads will go, don't you know he's on fentanyl or some crap, whatever. I read a book on fentanyl. That was pretty sickening stuff. But the point is every time I see a dope head with, they got the piss running down their leg and stuff like that, I think of Joe Rogan. Those are millions of Joe Rogan products. And that could be the future of Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan may end up like that if he continues on the drugs. And because his fame and fortune are completely irrelevant. He doesn't have any fortune anyway. He's on the spec of, he's a hired hand for the big people, right? Now, for the normal people, he's very wealthy and he's famous. He gets to meet all these cool people. He's got a cool job. He lays around getting drunk and smoking dope with Elon Musk, right? That's cool to people with low brain wattage, right? It's not cool to people who are fighting in the real world. It's not cool at all. That's enemy action. That's like, go ahead, sir.
I was going to say, you talk about Japan and other cultures, the mark of a successful society in the past, I think, which we don't have as much today, is respect for the elders. Because you learn from the elders, you have that humility and you say, teach me what you know about this. But because you're right, the young kids don't know a lot of things about certain things. And I don't want to be the old guy who says you don't know anything, but I will say the respect for the elders is important. And when I don't see it, it makes me angry.
It's actually very important because that's part of the structure. It's not like every elder is a wise elder. That we all know that's not true, but they are very important, very important. And one of the things in information war, if you want to destroy and erode or let's say a people, I would, the number one weapon is intoxicants, and it's been like this since the edge of time. Right? The edge of recorded history. You use intoxicants to get people into cults. You control their diets. You control some cults revolve around don't do any intoxicants at all, but others revolve around getting people intoxicated. For instance, many of the suicide bombers in Iraq, they were on drugs. I mean, straight up. They used the drugs to get them suggestible, and they were watching all these films and and then, they know how to do their selection habits and that sort of thing. They know the things to watch for, because first, like somebody who's going to train dogs. I mean, quite literally, the expert dog trainer that's done it for 20 or 30 years, he's going to walk out there and he's going to go, this one looks like a good one. This one, it has nothing to do with the color of the coat of their hair or something. It's going to be something. Behavior. He's going to go that one, and you can keep the rest, right? And that's the way it is with recruiting suicide bombers. They're going to have certain qualities that they're going to notice, and after they do some stimuli, and then they're going to take those guys and they're going to take them into the madrasa somewhere, like down in in Pakistan or whatever, and then they put them into action, which will be happening all over the United States right now with people that came across the Darien and other places. That HIAS, Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society is bringing people into the United States who definitely will kill Jews. 100% they will kill Jews. They're already attacking them. We find others on the database, like this guy that shot the Jewish guy, Todd Bensman wrote about. That guy came through the Darien Gap. That guy matches up perfectly. His age, the dates that he came through, and that sort of thing, and country of origin, everything matched up perfectly, right? These, by the way, a young Air Force cadet in Texas.
Yeah. Ava Moore. Yeah.
Ava Moore was killed, maybe 10 days ago. She just was buried a couple days ago. And two migrants, they say in the news, but let's say invaders, because that's what they really are, came through the Darien Gap. They're on the database. And the female, apparently, who was on the jet ski, she's so poor that she had to come through the Darien Gap to get on a jet ski to be involved in the death of an Air Force cadet. So in any case, she's got a kind of a complicated name. And so it's got 4 names in it. I can see she came across the Darien Gap. Her age matches up perfectly. When she came across matches up perfectly. Venezuela, that matches up. Everything matches up. And the guy that was arrested with her, he also matches up with age, country of origin, time he came through the Darien Gap. Almost certainly those two came through. Another piece of evidence on who they are. Almost all of the people in their age group of Venezuelans who are coming across in recent few years come through the Darien Gap.
So was that intentional? Do you know? Because I'm an Air Force grad, and I'd like to know if that was intentional or not. Because what's her name? The Homeland Security's Nome came out and said we're going to try to look for the death penalty. But do you know if it was intentional running this kid over, or just manslaughter, high rate of speed?
I have no idea. I have no idea. Zero idea. And so, but what I do have an idea about is that's almost certainly the two that came across the Darien Gap. And there's every compass needle points that direction. That would be HIAS, again, helping them. United Nations, of course. These are all pityopaths, right? Like HIAS, their product is pity. Oh, I'm a professional victim. We got to help, and we got to help the Jews. But what they're really doing is allowing all the Muslims to come in and others to come in who will kill Jews. There ain't no Jews coming across.
Yeah, I was talking to a Jewish woman after that. I showed this Jewish woman your Substack actually about HIAS, helping to kill Jews. And she said, that doesn't make sense. And I thought, that is just, you're so unrelated to reality of what's been going on for several years.
She's in the cult.
It's in your face. Yeah.
It's right there, man. I mean, if there's elephant footprints on the beach and you see elephants over there, you know what I'm saying? You can't say, well, it doesn't make sense that there's elephants on the beach. I'm like, there's elephant poop, there's elephant footprints, there's elephants. Yeah, there's elephants on the beach. You know,
Yeah,
highest is facilitating the murder of Jews in the United States. And there, if you go to highest.org, go to highest.org, HAIS.org, and look at all the list of donors. Pritzkers, Shapiro's. There's a Ben Shapiro on there of unknown origin. I mean, there's all kinds of people on there, right? And I'm like, hey, that's very interesting that these people are actually funding the deaths of Jews in the United States. You can't make up this stuff. Catholic Charities is doing the same. Lutheran Services doing the same. IOM doing the same. All these Norwegian refugee councils, Red Cross doing the same, right? But most interesting about the highest and why we're talking about it now is that lady, the 88-year-old who's a fake Holocaust victim. She was wearing a highest pin on the photos. It's on my Substack now. Look at her on Substack. Highest helped that guy in who was involved in the attack. And then there was a mysterious Israeli IDF guy at the attack, handsome guy, super well-spoken, hero of the moment. Suddenly he's all over the news. Does this look like another stage? I don't know. But we see so many things that are staged at big levels and small. I've been in so many things that were staged. Like I took Masako Ganaha in front of the White House. And I said, do you see this BLM painted on the road in front of the White House? This is a permanent or semi-permanent stage. It's an actual stage, right? It's a literal stage in front of the White House as the backdrop for the stage. And I mean, as a stage, I mean, literally, it's a Hollywood type stage, right? And so these things are staged all over the world constantly. I've seen this in many countries. I've seen it in Thailand many, many times, right? And for instance, at Democracy Monument, I was in 2 of the coups in Thailand, right? So a little background there. I've been in a lot of fighting in Thailand, like a lot, and months at a time out, fighting and yada, yada. But at the end of the day, many of the people that were involved in some of the fighting in Thailand, a lot of it was organic, honest, great Thai people are standing up for their country. They have a strong heart. And then there was others who were paid and they were coming in on buses, right? And I tracked them down and I actually found a company that was behind it. And that same company ended up being caught doing it in South Africa later, right? What was the name of that company? But they actually admitted to it when they got hardcore caught. But I first got on their trail it was a British company. I first got on their trail in Thailand. And again, a few years later, they got caught in South Africa, getting people riled up to kill white people in South Africa, right? And this is a British company. And so almost certainly British intelligence, right? And so, but I don't know if it was, but that's how they roll. And so at the end of the day, you see these, I saw some of it in Hong Kong, for instance. I was there for 7 months until they kicked me out. Most of the protests there were organic, but a lot of the protests were, they were coming in on buses. And I tracked some of them down, and some of the ones that were not organic typically were much older people, and they were getting paid. They would be brought in on buses. They would hold their signs up, and it would get in the news because part of the stage was to have the media there, so the media would be there and yada yada, and then they would go off on the buses. Right? It's the same thing. I see it over and over and over. It happens in the United States. You hear about the U-Haul trucks or whatever coming in with people. They do their thing and they get back on. It's the same thing. It's a tale as old as time. I was at January 6th, and I watched people coming up at January 6th, and a lot of them had the drums. 1776, their uniforms marching. Let me tell you who has the drums at protests. Left wing. Left wing. Anytime you hear people say, look at the Trumpers, beating the drums on every country I go to, if they got drums, they're communist. I'm telling you, search for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Next time you have a protest out somewhere, you got somebody beating the drums, the bongos and all that stuff. Yeah, follow those people back.
You know what that is? That's the pain.
A Tommy who smells like dope almost every time. It's like they're totally already drugged up. You get near them when they're beating the bongos and smell them, man. Just smell them.
Well, that comes from the pagan history, man. I mean, it goes way back. The whole anarchist, nihilist drumming kind of thing in the woods. Worshiping the tree or whatever.
What's the best book on that, man? You're getting me off on something here. I'd like to look more on that.
I don't know. I would say probably some of the Viking stuff for one. Look
beating
at
the drums out in the woods, worship. I know somebody who married a tree, but that's a different story. Actually, I'm going to be with their family again soon over in Nepal. I love them. It's like, but anyway, it's different cultures doing different stuff. It's not like sex with a tree. It's not that. It's not. It's a different. Actually, I'll tell you why they marry the tree. It's because in a lot of cultures, including a lot of Americans, they follow astrology very closely, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like very closely, like in Thailand, when the obstetrician can be very busy at a certain minute of the day because everybody's astrologer said you have to have the baby at an auspicious minute of the day, right? So the obstetricians are like, ready, set, go, deliver all the babies. It's like, and whoo. It's and the people with the most money get they're the ones that they're most on target. But in any case, so the astrology is quite big in different cultures, and so in one culture, at least one culture, there's the idea of something called Shakti, which is universal female power, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if the woman's Shakti is more powerful than the man's, and they get married, her Shakti can kill him, right? So because her power is greater than his power, right? And so so if she marries the tree, her energy goes to that tree, that negative part of her energy goes to that tree, and her husband is now safe. But you got to keep the tree alive. It's interesting, isn't it? It's not like I'm in love with the tree. It's not like that. It's just more like it's more of a, whether they actually believe it or not is unknown to me, but some will certainly believe it, and others probably just do it like a more of a cultural ritual at this point,
Well, I think we've covered that subject pretty good, Mike. Appreciate your time, man. It's a good 45 minutes, so it's about all I can play for tomorrow.
Every time we get on, we burn on long.
No, it's good. It's good. I love the discussions and appreciate your time. And I know you're busy. And real quick, what are you doing in Texas right now?
Packing up. We're getting ready to go to Japan. But I've been in Texas for a while, meeting with all kinds of interesting people and fascinating meetings and dinners. And I just had dinner with Laura Logan the other night. And so Laura and I were just down the Darien Gap, actually.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And so we had a small table of people there. It was fascinating. Actually, we went into let me tell you something. Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
We went into this antique store. I got the card here somewhere, but it's in Fredericksburg, Texas, right?
Uh-huh.
I went in there because they're friends of Laura Logan, but because I was asking about used bookstores there. You know me, I'm always looking for antique books because to me that's where I'm panning for gold on old truth.
I agree with you, man.
I'm not a book collector. I'm a knowledge collector, so anyway, this lady who her name's Carol. She has this antique store in Fredericksburg. And she's going around Europe to all these churches that are closing down because of what's happening, what we were just talking about, like Hias. Actually, come to think of it, yeah. So anyway, her antique store, if you go in there in Fredericksburg, Texas, the name of the store starts with her name, Carol. Anyway, just look up antique store Fredericksburg, Texas, if you're around, and Carol. But it's a huge antique store, and it's filled with stuff from churches in Europe, like France, Netherlands, Germany, because these churches are all closing down. So, like Laura told me, she said, this basically is she's basically by accident recording the downfall of Christianity in Europe.
Yeah.
Doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
True life Alp story. I got a call from a friend of mine yesterday, honestly, true story, who said his girlfriend had just broken up with him over Alp. He wouldn't stop. And I thought to myself, that's kind of sad. And he said, no, it's not sad. Imagine if I'd married her. Now I know. I was saved. Then the next day, this same friend is driving at twice the speed limit through a major American city, pulled over by a cop in a speed trap. Cop takes his license registration, goes back to the patrol car, runs him, comes back, looks in the window, and sees a tin of Alp on the dashboard. Pauses, stunned, says to my friend, "You use Alp?" Yeah, I do, says my friend. So do I, says the cop. We all do. He looks at my friend thoughtfully and goes, drive safely, sir, and hands back his license and registration. No ticket. So in 2 days, he's saved from a tragic marriage to a girl who doesn't like Alp and a speeding ticket. All true. It's more than a nicotine patch.
Welcome back to the SCIF. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Michael Jan. We have some of the same interests in history and everything, so he's right. We kind of go on past our time there, but enjoyed speaking with him. And another guy I really enjoy speaking with, General Paul Vallely, and I'm going to bring him in now. Sir, how are you doing?
Well, fine, Todd. Happy to be with you again. As always, you got a great show.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's getting good. We're getting a lot of good feedback. I wanted to get you on because all this stuff, first of all, we had Pompeo over there in Ukraine talking about how he's going to fight this war against Russia and we're going to win and bad things are going to happen. And you had Lindsey Graham and Da Nang Dick over there, laundering money in the hotels. And what the heck is going on in your opinion, sir? What say you?
Well, I think the information and the intelligence I'm getting is that the state of the situation there is that Ukraine has lost the ground war. There's no doubt about it. They're trying to recruit off the streets again and pull young men into vans and take them off and try to bring them into the armed forces. But they're done on the ground as far as I'm concerned. Now, what they've had to go to are rockets, missiles, and drones and guerrilla activities inside Russia, in Moscow, and of course with the two railroad bridges that were exploded and basically destroyed. They're repairing them now. So you have Zelensky, the puppet, still being propped up by basically Starmer in UK, Macron in France, and Meltz in Germany. Meltz was just with the president yesterday. But it still comes down to it's got to be solved by Putin and Trump and Zelensky. Zelensky's a puppet, as we know, so he's just in there playing whatever cards he can. However, he's supported by the likes of crazy Lindsey Graham and the neocon Pompeo, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
these guys just stir it up, and they're not making any headway in their efforts.
So you think that's just you don't see their dirty work getting worse over there? I mean, Pompeo lost his security clearance. I mean, how the heck do you? I just it's bizarre. To me, it's just. I mean, the guy's outing himself, and he's a West Point grad. I mean, I'm ashamed of the West Point guys. I mean,
he never accomplished anything in the first term at CIA or State Department, as far as I'm concerned. Smart guy, but on the wrong side of things. But it's interesting, on a couple of interviews I've done over the last week, Trump does not have one advisor that understands Russia and Russian motivations and what they're doing. That's why only Trump and Putin can solve this thing. I can't. I think even the CIA still hasn't been cleaned out. I think they're working in the ops center over there with other NATO members, where they're guiding basically this drone technology attacks, plus rockets and missiles. They do have an operations center over there. I think you know that as well.
Yes. What about Russia? How are they seeing all this? I know you have contacts over there. I mean, what are they thinking? Do they just think it's a war inside the U.S. government? Is that how they're viewing this?
No, I mean, they see it as a real war because they've seen the number of Russian soldiers that have been killed or wounded. They certainly would like to see it come to an end. As far as the Russian people are concerned, they don't want to be involved in these extended wars anywhere. And even though, they talk about sanctions on Russia, the Russian people, sanctions don't work against a power like Russia.
Yeah.
Todd. They do workarounds. If they want bullets or flour or any kind of commodity, they can get it through the BRICS nations. China, for example, India, Brazil, or the other ones that are involved in the BRICS financial system. So it's ludicrous. And the neocons keep pushing, we got to put, all of these tariffs on them, and they don't work. It's ridiculous. The only thing that works is negotiation and settlement.
I completely agree. And now Zelensky wants a ceasefire after he did his little deal on the airfields. He's kind of like a kid that hits one guy on a bigger guy on the playground, and then runs to the teacher and says, don't hurt me.
Yeah. Well, in the last 24 hours, Russia has been hitting hard Kiev area, and I don't know the results of that yet, but that's been in the last 24 hours. So Putin has gone on the offensive within the last day.
Yeah, I was talking to one of our sources yesterday on the show, and where would the targets be? I mean, what else is left to hit in Ukraine? I mean, Zelensky's underground somewhere, wherever he is. I mean, they'd love to decapitate the leadership, I think, but what else is there to, strategic targets to hit?
They still say military factories and storage areas in the Kiev area, maybe troop locations. I don't know, have the specifics on the targets. And, I wouldn't be surprised if Putin just launches a ground attack and takes Kiev and removes Zelensky.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's in his planning somewhere.
We may be getting to that point.
Yeah.
Let's switch to the Middle East. What are your thoughts on what's happening with the negotiations in Iran right now?
Well, they're going nowhere really. Iran is not going to give up its program, from the sources I get from our organization here that I support, called Cyrus Force Iran, made up of a number of American Iranians that have inside information inside Iran. The Ayatollahs have to be removed. As far as the people of Iran are concerned, they don't like the undemocratic society over there. They don't like constantly being in peril. Their economy's not good. Of course, they're still producing oil and sending it to China, and they're not going to allow inspectors to come in. So two options there: you take out the nuclear facilities, but you somehow work to remove the Ayatollahs. But we don't do very well when we try to remove overseas rulers, do we?
No, we don't. Tucker came out this week and said, look, they've been saying Iran has a nuclear weapon for 20 years.
Right. Yeah.
And so why should you? It's kind of like the boy cried wolf. I mean, why would you believe that at this point? Do you think Iran has a nuclear capability?
Yes, they have nuclear weapons already. And the reason we know that is from inside information we're getting. Number one, they've had the Shahab rocket system, missile system for years. That they have focused on putting a nuclear warhead on top of it. They also have the guidance system. They have the nuclear cone that goes on the top, and that's been worked when they have worked with the North Koreans and Chinese. Every time China had a nuclear, or North Korea had a nuclear test, they always had a team of 12 to 15 Iranians there in North Korea. And they have the Club K technology to deliver nuclear weapons in a hold of a ship or in an 18 or in a container, put it on an 18-wheeler and move it by trucks and so on. So they have a full capability with the Shahab. Now, I'm not sure the Shahab it can get to Israel, that's for sure, but I'm not sure they have the intercontinental ballistic system to launch a nuke on the United States. So that's the latest I have. But I'm assured pretty much they already have nuclear capability, and they're not going to give it up.
That's interesting, because that's not what we're hearing in the press,
right.
Obviously.
It's always like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or
yeah.
I've been working on this for 20 years with the Russians and the Chinese and North Koreans. And if they wanted more fissionable material, they could buy it from these other countries, even Pakistan. So, I mean, it's naive to think they don't have the capability now.
So why would you want to get into a major war to try to remove that capability when I think, that is just another forever war? I mean, maybe that's the goal. I mean, why don't you just say, okay, we're going to have deterrence with Iran and let it be that?
Well, that's an option, but we don't trust the Ayatollahs. Nobody trusts them, basically. they'll do whatever they can to preserve the what is it? The 12th Imon is going to come up through a well out there sometime, something like that. I mean, they're not sane, they're totally irrational as long as they'll do anything to continue to support terrorism. Other interesting thing in the last 24 hours, the IDF have been hitting targeted places in Beirut city itself, where they have found that through intelligence that Hezbollah has weapon system factories under some of these apartment buildings and larger office buildings in the center of Beirut. So this is a brand new assault.
That is new. So you're saying for Hezbollah or
Hezbollah?
What? Yeah. Let's move to the cartels. What do you see happening on the border with Mexico? And you've written this Sinaloa plan a while back.
Right.
What's the latest?
Well, the latest is 99.9% of the border has been shut down. They're going to put another 20,000 National Guard down there, as I understand. The cartels have basically been shut down as far as the majority of fentanyl flow into the United States. So the cartels are still being surveyed, reconnaissance, watching the 4 or 5 cartel areas down in the Sinaloa area. Certainly, Mexican government's doing nothing to make sure they can neutralize or destroy the cartels. So the cartels are not in good shape now, but still they have billions of dollars that they can use to fund terrorists, say, in the United States. So there's still a threat and they need to be destroyed.
So what else are you tracking, sir? Anything else that people need to be aware of?
Well, we're really tracking the biggest fear that I have is intel. It's not the CCP, but it's all the illegals who have come across our border that are still here. We know that a number of types of equipment supplies have been moved in through container our ports and pre-positioned. I'm really worried about our water sources, also the electrical grid, farming, food supplies, supply type of stuff. I certainly think these people are still there. Guerrilla type people have been trained. We have a tremendous amount of Chinese that have come in addition to the students, but also teams perhaps of guerrilla type forces that can execute these type of attacks on our inner capability, like the grid system. Even our military bases, have been under surveillance for quite a while by the Chinese. So to me, that's the biggest threat we have. And of course, still the anti-Semitic riots we see in our universities. So we got to get these people out of here as soon as we can. Absolutely.
Well, it looks like Trump's dealing with the universities, but I am concerned also. I'm an Air Force guy, and seeing all those, very expensive aircraft sitting right on the one after the other on the ramp. Didn't we learn anything from Pearl Harbor? Why aren't we hardening? I mean, this has not been something that's taken a rocket science to figure out. Why haven't we been protecting our aircraft over the last 20, 30 years and building that capability? And now the drones are here and they're vulnerable. It's disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, these drones could be in these containers brought through the ports of Long Beach and Seattle, Miami, and other different port locations we have in the United States. Louisiana, New Orleans, so it's big up the Mississippi River. They can float these things up. So again, that's my biggest threat is internal threats. And the Democratic Party.
What's that?
And the Democratic Party.
Whatever that is. How do people follow you, sir? Where should they follow what you put? Because you put out a lot.
We do put out a lot of content and intel information every day. Go to standupamericaus.org. And it's got to be standupamericaus.org. There are books, our writings, our intel reports come out there. Join us. We're dependent upon donations. We've been around 20 years and we do good things. We have a great team of people. And what we do is present truth as best we can, analyze what's going on internally and externally, and even within our own government of what we're doing. So join us at standupamericaus.org.
Thank you, sir. We'll have you back down the road. Appreciate your time.
Okay, Todd. Take care.
the bird flu is circulating. We're getting more and more press, more fear mongering, more warnings about this. First, let's start with that. What say you on?
Well, what I say is it specifically is not circulating. It's in animals. There's one human, maybe two transmissions, no human-to-human transmission. And stand by, everybody. If there is some sort of sudden human-to-human transmission, you should immediately be suspicious that gain of function was involved with that. Just the fact that they're taking an animal virus and going nuts on it in the press and talking about it all the time, that to me leads me to believe that they have concerns that somebody is doing something with that virus, because this would not happen naturally, in my opinion.
Our world is changing rapidly. Many crucial systems we depend upon are collapsing. And the most important system that is failing is the food supply.
Mr. President, this Council is more than aware of the multiple challenges and threats the world is facing today. But the threat of famine, people starving slowly to death, must be a red line.
These food prices are going to keep going up and up, and they're going to keep feeding excuse after excuse, narrative after narrative.
Yeah,
so you're going to have to get off that treadmill and start getting more autonomous with your own food growing.
You want to make sure that you can eat, because frankly, food is the biggest issue as we are going through these transitions.
But amidst the chaos, there is a path to resilience. Marjorie Wildcraft is the female leader of the survival and preparedness movement. Marjorie has taught millions of people how to grow an abundance of food in a grid-down situation, even if you have no experience, are older, or out of shape.
I've spent decades finding the fastest, easiest, and funnest ways for the average person to be able to grow a lot of food. I've created a step-by-step process that's so simple that even kids to elders have been using it in order to grow a lot of their own food. And you can too, even if you have no experience, you're older, or you're out of shape.
Growing your own food is like printing your own money. Get started today.
Welcome back to the SCIF. We had one of our cameras drop out there. Sorry about that. Couple things. Food, cdmfood.com. Go to that website, cdmfood.com, and check out Marjorie Wildcraft's offerings. If you're wanting to get more resilient and grow your own food, as she said, it's like printing money. You can find all the information you need there at CDM Food. She has a lot of good free content, and when you get through the free content and you want continuous help and interaction with others to grow your own food in as she says, in a small space with not a lot of room and effort, and even if you're old and out of shape, you can do that with her and get involved with the Grow Network. And you have to pay for that, but I can tell you it's well worth it. I mean, she has just a plethora of information on everything from soil to how to put together the food, gardens, everything, how to fertilize, everything. All of it's there. So check it out, cdmfood.com. Also, we talked about Iran, my book, Paying the Price, The Untold Story of the Iranian Resistance. What you need to understand about Iran is we don't need a war, all right, to take down this regime and put in a government that will be much more amenable to the West and live with the West. The problem, as the general said, they are just not thinking it. They're irrational, and the leadership, current leadership, and they want to fund terror. And there's a way to take them down without a major war. And for some reason, the U.S. government has been stopping this, and that's probably due to a lot of the influence of the Iranian regime inside the U.S. government over the last 20 years, as well as in the UK. But if you go and get this book, Paying the Price, The Untold Story of the Iranian Resistance, it's on Kindle, and you can order the book at historyofbooks.com or anywhere books are sold. You will get an understanding of how this government can be taken down without a major war that it's going to involve our sons and daughters. I guarantee you'll learn something. You'll learn a lot with this book that you didn't know. I traveled the world, and 7 or 8 years ago, I met these people and spent a lot of time with them, and I didn't know anything about them. So I had my eyes open as to what the MEK and the NCRI actually do, the Iranian resistance. So check it out, Paying the Price, The Untold Story of the Iranian Resistance, available anywhere books are sold. Let's talk about some stories. We talked about Ukraine. This is our first site that we put out, Tsarism.com. Actually, it was born in 2015. I was still writing for the Washington Times. It's meant to cover all of the former Soviet, or actually the Tsarist regime, which actually goes from Poland all the way to San Francisco. If you didn't know it, there's a Fort Rus in San Francisco. It used to be controlled by the Russian Tsar. So this site covers the former Tsarist empire, and we go into culture, travel, everything. It's really interesting site. There's nothing like it I can find out there. But we detail the attacks across Ukraine last night, and we showed a little bit of the video, but I can show a little more of this. Let's do this here, and you can see the attacks coming, the massive attack, 400 plus projectiles into Ukraine last night from Russia. This is part of the retaliation for Ukraine doing the drone attacks on Russian airfields. But look at that. I mean, just Ukraine is saying they shot down most of them. I don't know if that's true. You saw a lot of the impact areas, and they're very short on air defense systems. But this was a massive attack. So you can check that out on Tsarism.com, TSARICM.com. And we wonder what's to come. There's a report out this morning that Operation Spiderweb, which is what they call this, is continuing. That's disturbing. So what else will happen? What else does Ukraine have up its sleeve, its cards, if you will, in order to attack Russia domestically? There was talk about drones, underwater drones attacking Russian ships. I mean, you're talking U-boats, essentially, just like what got World War I going strong. This is some other videos of some of the attacks last night in Ukraine.
Ебать! Пизда! Ебать!
Sorry for the Russian curse words there.
Ебанутый нахуй. Пиздец! Просто пиздец!
Just some more video here, so you can see this. Anyway, enough of that. So that's a story. We're going to continue. We have Pete Blaber on Sunday or Tuesday at 11, but I'm sure something will happen over the weekend, and we'll have more updates on Ukraine as we get to it. This is a story from our Miami paper, MiamiIndependent.com, on the corruption in the Broward County Sheriff's Office. This is part 2 of the series. We've been doing a lot of research on this for some time. Check it out. It's again, Florida is not the gold standard. It's not free. It's extremely corrupt. I was on the Miami-Dade Republican Executive Committee for some time, and I can tell you that the tyranny coming down from the Republican Party of Florida is not cool. It's essentially there to protect corporate interests and other interests, and it's not there for the people. We've had Ed Vidal on, and maybe we'll have him on next week to talk about some of this again. But the populist element in Florida is still fighting. He has started the election brigade in Florida. We've got Chris Gleason and all the lawsuits from Broward to Hillsborough, Pinellas, all over Orange County. The populists are fighting back in Florida, but there's still a lot of corruption. So you can find this if you go to the MiamiIndependent.com, which is our Miami paper. I'll bring that out so you can see it. You can get segment 2 of this series, and there's more to come on what's going on with the Broward County Sheriff's Office. Another story I wanted to bring up is Colorado, Mike Lindell. The trial is ongoing. If you go to Colorado Free Press, you can read this. We're putting out daily updates on the trial. As I said, we run to the sound of the guns, and Colorado is a problem for the entire MAGA movement, the populist movement. It's been infiltrated and taken over. They're testing a lot of things. That's why Tina Peters is in jail. But this trial is the Lindell trial. It's Eric Coomer suing Mike Lindell. So we have daily updates there. And yesterday was a lot of talk about the Cyber Symposium and other things. But I think there's 5 or 6 articles on the Colorado Free Press about the trial. We have somebody actually up, and the team is up there in the courtroom. So you're getting it right from the mouth of the reporter. This is what we do at CDM. We have people everywhere, and we leverage that all the time, and we're really proud of it. So support us for that effort. Last, I want to talk about what's going on in the military. We have an article by John Hughes on armedforces.press, our military channel, armedforces.press. Why is General Donahue still in charge? He's in charge in Europe now, and this is the general that Hughes said did not do the right thing in the Afghan conflict. And you can read the whole article there. It's pretty long and in depth. And Hughes has written a lot. He's a West Point grad, valedictorian, multiple tour veteran. He's written a lot about the leadership failures in our government. And Amy Williams put out something just now. If all of our generals are globalists, why are they not being fired or replaced? That's a great question, Amy. And all we can do is continue to provide transparency and sunlight to what's going on inside the military and highlight these people when we can get a chance. I mean, Donahue has a distinguished career, but you can read what Hughes says about his actions in the last decade and make your own decisions. But armedforces.press is really impactful. A lot of people read it. It's got a huge audience, and this stuff gets a lot of traction. So we're proud of the team over there at AFP. We're going to take another break. We'll be back, and I've got a surprise for you, but stay with us. Stay with us on the SCIF. We'll be right back.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down, and doctors' offices were shut down, and even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
So we are in the factory in Kentucky. This is Alp World HQ, and we are at the end of the packing line. So I'm going to show you how it works. We have the card, throw it in there. There's a packing slip, and then you have the Alp. And 4, but that seems honestly like a lot. 3 now, but it's good. These pack a punch that, for a normal nicotine brand, it'd be like 8. We think 3 is fine. Next one. Again, 4. Let's throw 3 in just to keep it fair. Okay? There you go. So you can see you can get fast at this. And really, it's just a matter of repetition. This is kind of the assembly line that, Henry Ford devised so long ago.
Tucker stealing all the applicants.
Welcome back to the SCIF. I've got a surprise for you, but first I want to talk about the Manhattan.press, which is our New York paper. And I want to highlight the bestsellers list, the Manhattan bestsellers list. If you go to the top right corner, click on the Manhattan bestsellers list. We have all the different topics and categories of books. This is just the best-selling books. We don't put any bias in this. The New York Times, bestsellers list is very obviously biased. It's historically that biased. That's well known, especially against conservatives. If you're not part of the matrix, you don't get promoted. This is only the best-selling books across the land in multiple different categories. You can also buy the book there. Just check out and buy it from us. And if you have another book you want to go to CDM.press, top page, top menu, and you will see the CDM bookshop. Go there and buy your books from us. Don't buy them from the woke retailers. Why do that? Support free media. Support us. Leave a legacy for your grandchildren. We've got another treat for you. We have Brent Beecham on a lot. And this is Brent when he was launching into the Gulf War. So we're going to play an interview I did with him on War Stories. Let me just bring that forward a little bit. I talked with Brent about what he went through the first night of the Gulf War. So we're going to play this. I hope you enjoy it to round out the show. Brent Beecham used to be, I guess, Captain Brent Beecham, right? When you left?
Yeah.
So he was an F-15 pilot in the United States Air Force and then went on to fly for the Israeli Air Force, A-4 attack jets. But he was involved in the first night of the war, in the first Gulf War, and I want to hear his story. So welcome, Brent.
Thank you for having me.
So talk to us how it happened, how you want to lead up to this. I mean, it was shock and awe, right?
Yeah. And it was really interesting. The commanders in the CENTCOM sent out General Horner to go to all the squadrons, all the wings that were deployed, and he wanted to assure us that the things that had happened in Vietnam would not happen here. And he wanted us to know what the mission was, what we were, what the goal to achieve was. Talked about centers of gravity, and he said, I can't give you the date and the time, but all you have to do is go look at go talk to the weatherman, and you'll understand when we're going to go. So we had a few days warning. It may have been even a week. I don't remember exactly.
So how long were you deployed in country? Were you in Dairan, or where were you? Okay.
Yeah, we went to Dairan. We were the first combat units to arrive. We deployed on August 7th of 90 and had been flying patrols from the very moment we landed till the day the war started. And
along the border?
Yeah, we would fly 4 to 8 aircraft every single day up to the border with Kuwait and Iraq, so all along that whole border, to kind of be a tripwire for what was, a potential invasion from Iraq into Saudi Arabia, which was that really was the initial concern. And in fact, when we landed on August the 8th, we had no idea, in fact, one of the first things we talked about was where we're going to redeploy if they do in fact invade and we have to flee south, what's the next stop? So, I mean, there was a lot of concerns about that, but we spent a few months familiarizing ourselves. And it got to the point, I think, where we weren't even sure that it was actually going to happen. They gave us no timelines, and there was lots of negotiations and whatnot. So it was a little bit of uncertainty. Went from very gung ho, ready to go to war, get there, prepare, and then now we're on hold for this long period of time.
Hurry up and hurry.
Yeah, exactly. And we're all thinking maybe it's time to go back. Maybe it's time to go back home if we're not going to go to war. We had not really packed for a 1-year deployment or something. It was an indeterminate amount of time. So, once we got that visit from General Horner, we knew it was going to happen. And I'll tell you, there was a little bit of a pit in the stomach of anybody who will, admit it. But
of course,
it was, it's one thing to deploy and arrive and go straight to combat because something had happened. It was another to sit there for a long period of time, kind of get a little bit complacent about whether or not there actually would be conflict.
And were you getting lit up when you were doing the patrols? Sorry, we got some feedback again. I mean, was there a threat level that you could see?
They occasionally would run MiG-25s at the border to threaten AWACS or the tankers. So that was our primary mission, was to defend, high value assets. So we saw them run against us a few times. You could see SAM sites across the border just, looking at us, but it wasn't any palpable threat. I did fall asleep one night. Almost started. Maybe I could have started the war a little early. I fell asleep. We're so tired. We flew so many missions, and we were in a counter-rotating cap at night. So we had this air-to-air attack in between us. We knew how the distance, so we would hit 20 miles and then turn back, and it's 20, 21, 22. And the guy was flying with it goes, "Hey, where you at? Where you going?" And I was like, "Oh crap!" I woke up and
I
was just a few miles from the border. That was all interesting stuff. But like you say, you just get into this routine, and then all of a sudden it's real. And to the point, the first night I was actually on duty to help get everyone out off the ground, and so I was running around between different revetments. And we went out, and I said, "Okay, guys," we talked to the crew chiefs. "Hey, we're going to war." And they looked at me like, "What?" They were, completely caught by surprise. I said, "This is the flight lead of the first airplane that's launching from Dhahran, and I need that airplane to be right." And they, all of a sudden you could see this sense of purpose. Of course, and this was guy Steve Tate, who at the beginning they said it was the first kill. There were some timing issues about that, but he got a kill the first night. He jumps in his first airplane, it breaks. I run to the second airplane, get it ready. He tries to crank it, it breaks. I run to the third airplane and set it all up. He jumps in, he taxis out into the runway. There's a fuel leak on one of the tanks, and now they're like 25 minutes late for this, for their tanker. And this master chief looks at me, has his gum in his mouth, and he goes, sticks it on the leak. He said, "That'll hold until it gets pressurized." And I was like, that would never happen in peacetime. So it was really, so he goes up and he gets his first kill, comes back, and, that was the first sense that, things were happening. The interesting thing was I was in a four-ship with the guy who was our weapons officer, and he was one of the guys that was doing all the planning. And he said, "Let's don't do nighttime. Let's get a day mission so we can do some dogfighting." So we kind of picked the mission we were going to go on, which was the next afternoon. And, we went up. There was 8 of us from Langley. I think there was 48 F-16s. There was a couple of EF-111s that were jamming, and I think a 4-ship of F-4Gs that were doing Wild Weasel stuff. And so we flew up north to the tankers. There was tanker tracks up there that we were going to refuel. This was an attack on a base just outside of Baghdad. And, our mission was to go up and clear the skies on the way in, pick up anybody that would launch to attack, that would come after the F-16s, and then cover the egress out. And so the entire time we're sitting on the tanker track, it takes a long time to get everybody refueled, get everybody tanked back on for this mission. And Baghdad's a pretty good distance up north. And we're a little bit kind of the west, so we're not anywhere where all the big, really dense threats were around Kuwait. But as we're sitting in the tanker track, the AWACS, and it was it was a female controller, and she was unbelievably talented person and was very calming. And it was really interesting how just her voice, calling out the threats was, very clear, and everybody understood what the picture was. And interesting, there were MiG-29s that were up over the base that we were going to attack. We knew there were MiG-29s to the west of that at a base. That was a big threat to us. And so we're planning, there's 8 of us, and we're all planning how we're going to shoot down these 2 MiG-29s. And interestingly enough, there was the guys from Eglin were out west, and for whatever reason, they come sweeping across the entire formation of 60 odd airplanes and shoot down these 2 MiG-29s like visual distance, and then come flying right back through these F-16s who are all trigger happy, waiting, for MiG-29s that they've been talking about for the last, hour. And I'm surprised they didn't shoot them. And then, sure enough, we get into the cap. There's surface air missiles locking onto us. There's these MiG-29s that we're, what happened to them? Who's launching from these other bases? So all of a sudden, it got very chaotic. I had radar warning for SA-2 and 2 SA-8s, and the SA-8s went straight to SA-8 launch. So they were visual launches. We were, because of the weather, we got pushed lower, and then we highlighted ourselves below the clouds. We had to get down below them, but they were able to launch at us visually. And I remember, they talk about time compression, and I remember having a conversation with myself. It was, if I turn left towards the formation, I'll stay with everybody. If I turn right, and there's a defensive maneuver. If I turn to the right 90 degrees, I'm going to be I'll move away from everybody, and then I'm not sure if I can get back. I'm sure that happened in a split second, and I decided I was going to turn left. And the F-4Gs were launching HARM missiles at them. I believe they probably broke lock, because I didn't see the launch because it was a visual launch, and we didn't get warnings until, it's probably 30 seconds time of flight before before they're going to hit you.
Yeah.
So I think, the F-4s probably either caused them to break lock, or the maneuvers and chaff that we put out were able to defeat them. But I never did pick it up visually, but it was a pretty chaotic, period of time. F-16s went in, dropped their bombs, came popping back out. We're in our cap. They go out, and we follow them back out again, and go back and refuel back across the border. So it was, probably, that was maybe an hour and a half north of the border our first day. And it was really, I look back on it and I can remember good portions of what happened pretty vividly. And it was an exciting day.
Well, a telephone pole coming at you will sharpen your senses.
Yeah.
Those SA-8s and 6s and 2s are pretty big missiles.
Well, SA-8's a little bit smaller, and really, if you don't see it launch, you're not going to pick it up. I saw later in the war at night, I saw SA-2s, and those really were telephone poles. They were huge, and man, I thought about back in the guys in Vietnam era, seeing these things come up out of Hanoi or something, and I was able to kind of flash back to that kind of period. But
so were you running for some time after that?
Yeah, so we flew every single day, and then so you would fly. You had an 8-hour flying block for a pre-planned mission, an 8-hour block of alert, an 8-hour block of sleep. And so most of the days we did mostly day missions. We swapped to nights, 3 or 4 nights into the war. I think it was the 3rd night of the war, we flew a night mission. There was 4 of us. One guy had a malfunction. He had to go back to base, and the 3 of us got pushed out to go intercept some high value transport that was being escorted by 8 MiG-29s. And we didn't have enough fuel to go catch them. They were heading towards Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And so AWACS directs this KC-10 to fly north. And again, up in this point, all the tanker tracks are south of the border. Most fighter tracks are south of the border. You just went across the fence for specific missions. This KC-10, they said, you need to take off north and meet these 3 F-15s and refuel them. And so we ended up refueling. We came up on this KC-10. He didn't have a single light on him. I didn't see him until he was less than a quarter mile out, maybe less. Yeah, I could see him.
I remember as well.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Exactly. And look down, and there's literally, we're between these 2 big fighter bases in southern Iraq, and there's an attack going on, and you see AAA coming up off these 2 bases, and we're like right between them with this KC-10, and so we refuel really quickly, and we take off north heading for these guys. And I remember the KC-10 guy calls back to AWACS. He's like, they refueled. What do you want us to do? We got no protection up here. And they're like going, turn south and go fast, So it was a pretty good distance to take that kind of risk. I don't know what the asset was that they thought we were going after, but they had 8 MiG-29s and there were 3 of us. And we got close enough to see them on radar, but we never could catch up with them enough. And I think they crossed into Iran. It could have been somebody, Bath Party or somebody that was being escorted. But you don't put 8 MiG-29s on an airplane if there's not somebody on it that's important.
For sure.
Yeah.
So how did it end for you?
How did what?
How did it end for you?
Yeah, so the last 2 nights of the war, before the ceasefire, I was on alert, and we got really comfortable with alert. Like when you're practicing in peacetime, 5 minutes seemed like that's not enough time to get off the ground and fly. By that time, we were sleeping in your underwear basically, and able to get off the ground pretty quickly. And so we got scrambled 2 nights in a row, and best of my knowledge, it was Saddam was planning to flee, and we were scrambled to go shoot him down. And they gave us this code word that said, this is an all cost. Chase them however far you have to, and if you run out of fuel, so be it, we'll come get you. And that was, they gave us this code word for that. And so we knew it was pretty serious. And so we scrambled 2 nights in a row for that. And I remember taking off, like looking down, okay, my boots aren't tied. I gotta get the ejection seat armed up. I forgot to put on one of my harnesses. I mean, you just got off the ground as fast as you could. It was really interesting. And then so once the ceasefire happened, we continued to patrol, and we did that. And of course, they lit the oil fields on fire.
Mm-hmm.
So we were, flying up through, it was just smoke and fire everywhere. It was really surreal. And after a week or so of that, they decided to rotate us home since we were the first guys. So we came back almost 7 months to the day, came back to Langley, had to stop over in Spain on the way back, and then, finally back home. And it was definitely a big welcome from the base. Back in the day, people today forget there was no internet, there was no cell phone, there was no video, there was no email. It was, occasional phone call and a bunch of handwritten letters. So to reconnect with your family after 7 months was a big thing for us.
I forgot, I hadn't thought of that we didn't have all that back then. Yeah. Sure. Well, interesting, Brent. Anything else you want people to know?
No, just I think a lot of people today, there's a disconnect between American people and the military, and I think that the professional force has made it such that people don't really have any connection with anybody they know. It's not like the draft days when you knew somebody from your high school or your neighborhood get drafted. Remember that there are people out there every day that are defending our country, and we really need to make sure we support them and not just in a kind of casual way. We support our troops. So it's important work they do.
Hope you enjoyed the interview with Brent, classmate of mine, Brent Beecham, U.S. Air Force Academy, class of 86, F-15 pilot and A4 pilot. Good friend of mine and very involved in CDM, so in multiple ways. So we like to give him credit for his service to the country. Thank you for joining us on the SCIF. That's all we have this week. We will be back Monday through Friday, 10 to noon Eastern. We're on the Georgia show, 2 o'clock today, or Sunday. We have BKP, Brian K. Pitchert will be there. It'll be after the Georgia convention. This is going to be a sporty show. We're going to release some information and have some really good insight on what's going on in the corrupt state of Georgia. But until then, thank you for joining us. We'll see you Monday at 10. Take care. Have a good weekend.